Okay, let's get to this next story. It's tremendously important.
This is
It's called the
huge.
Pandora Papers. It is a large group of financial papers from 14 different financial institutions, advisory groups, and more from across the world that were then leaked to a consortium of the Washington Post, the International Consortium of Journalists, the Guardian, and more. So we're getting our very first view into the actual Pandora Papers. Let's put this up there on the screen. It says, billions hidden beyond reach. And what's absolutely fascinating here is about the number of foreign leaders who have entered into these complex financial arrangements of trusts, tax havens, and more in order to purchase massive amounts of property, funnel money to illicit gains, and really it just gives you a perfect view into the international financial elite and how they move their money all across the world. So the two headlines that are really being drawn from this right now are about, number one is a Russian woman who, after reportedly having a child with Russian President Vladimir Putin, now lives on waterfront property in Monte Carlo. And she has become tremendously wealthy, it seems, Krystal.
I'm surprised by that.
She's the owner of an apartment. There's an offshore company which was created just weeks after she gave birth to a baby girl. The child was born right around the same time that there was a report that she was having a secret, now years-long relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. For anybody who's been to Monte Carlo, it's a beautiful place. It overlooks the Riviera and the ocean. It's got great weather. Really nice place. It's a perfect place to park millions of illicit Russian dollars if you happen to have an affair with the Russian president. The second one that's making headlines is much more, just as disgusting of a story, is King Abdullah of Jordan, who has used about $100 million while his own people are starving or not doing so well to purchase homes in Malibu, here in Washington, D.C., and in Miami. So you can see that the King of Jordan is spending $100 million on illicit homes here in the United States for him and his wife to go and party, his kids also. When I was at Georgetown, it was an open secret that his daughter was like in the program, and that she was like a queen or whatever, and had to be hands off. And also the building that we were all in was founded by the Saudi royal government. So it was all, there was a lot of shady stuff that was going on there. Sorry, Georgetown. And one of the funny things that you can see is that this is exactly how they funnel money into all of this. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out what you said at the top of our show, which is that the reason that there are no American billionaires listed in here is that financial crime experts say that tax rates are so low in the United States for the ultra wealthy because they pay an effective tax rate of between like 1% and 9% on their assets that they have no interest in trying to play illicit games. They're like, hey, I can actually flaunt my wealth right out in the open in the American financial system because the tax rates are so incredibly low, and it's legal to have tax avoidance given that that capital gain step-up basis that we were talking about earlier. That is enshrined into law. Same thing for these private equity guys. Whenever it comes to like the carried interest loophole and stuff, they don't need Panama Papers and more. I guess at least in Russia they have a fake tax rate, and then all the oligarchs keep it in Panama, and then normal Russians are the ones who actually have to pay it. But yeah, it's a pretty amazing story about. They have 130 billionaires, 300 public officials, the presidents of like Kenya, presidential candidates, and a Czech billionaire who's running for president there, Ecuador, it's the entire world. I encourage everybody to go and read it. It's very important journalism.
14 cases involving current country leaders.
There you go.
Revealed in these papers, which is the largest trove of financial documents. And part of what's so important here is previous leaks have centered on like just one law firm that does these sorts of offshore accounts.
Yeah, that was the Panama Papers.
Right, so that was the Panama Papers. This is across a number of law firms, so you get a more complete global picture of the way that the very top of the global elite operate. And so we can thank Senator Heidi Heitkamp and other people like her for making it so that our top billionaires don't have to use offshore accounts. They can just avoid taxes out in the open because that's the official system that we have set up here. So great job again, Senator Heitkamp, really earning her money and making sure that that continues to be the case.
Thank you, ma'am.
But the other thing here, one other funny note is in South Dakota, the state next to North Dakota that Senator Heitkamp represented, South Dakota has apparently now become like a tax haven.
Yeah, for foreign billionaires. Very strange.
Yeah, the level of like Cayman Islands and other famous, tax havens. South Dakota is now, Sioux City is now apparently rivaling those as top like global tax haven destinations, which I did not realize and is very interesting.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
I'm like, it really does remind me of, should it be like a Fargo episode or something in terms of like,
right.
Why South Dakota? What exactly is going on?
Very weird. That one requires a little more insight. And by the way, all of these news organizations that just released their first investigations into these papers, I mean, again, this is a massive trove. I think it's 12 million different documents. So there's going to be a lot of follow-on articles digging into how they operate and what the implications are. The other piece that's worth mentioning is when you talk about 14 cases just in this leak involving current country leaders. Well, if you want to reform this system, forget about it, because these guys are all using it, right? Yeah. I mean, they're the ones who are benefiting from this system of global shady dealings and being able to hide their oft-times ill-begotten wealth. And the King of Jordan, I mean, this has important domestic implications because we give Jordan a lot of aid dollars.
Yeah.
We give them a lot of aid dollars, number one, because they host a lot of refugees from the region, both Palestinians and in recent years, a lot of Syrians. And so we give them aid dollars for that. We also give them $8 because they, have been a moderate influence in the region. So, and they've sort of backed us on whatever our Middle East policy is, whether it's good or bad. They kind of have our back in all of that. So the big question here is, how did King Abdullah get this money? Like, where did this money actually come from? Because Jordan isn't like the Gulf states where they have massive natural resources, these giant oil reserves. They don't have that. This is a relatively poor country, and that's part of why he actually faced a coup attempt.
Yes, very recently.
His half-brother is in prison now because he was apparently plotting to overthrow him because there's massive concern about corruption in that government, and also just the fact that you have a population that is relatively poor, that has really been struggling in recent years, high unemployment rate, high levels of hunger, all of that going on. So you have a large level of domestic instability and a deep concern about corruption. And then you're going, where'd you get these $100 million from?
Yeah.
And what they say in this, and I take this with a grain of salt because in my experience, government aid dollars haven't always been particularly well accounted for, but they say government officials assure them it's probably not coming from the US aid dollars because those are very well accounted for, which again, grain of salt. But they also get a lot of money from those Gulf states. And that money is apparently less well accounted for, and sometimes even comes with not the Kingdom of Jordan's name on it, but the king's actual name on it. So basically, the implication here is the king is very likely, he denies it, and his lawyers deny it, but he looks very possible that he is skimming money off the top that is intended for the people of his state that are struggling and really need those aid dollars. And instead, he's building and buying multi-million dollar lavish mansions in California, here in DC, other places around the world. So it's really disgusting. And it would not be surprising to see this lead to further instability in Jordan, given the fact that he has already been under fire for corruption in his government.
Right. I'm already sad, Krystal, because now this means we can't go to Jordan, which is actually a very beautiful country.
I've spent a lot of time in Jordan.
Yeah, I weirdly have also spent like a month in Jordan. Great. It's a beautiful place, Wadi Rum, all of that. Some great stuff. Rainbow Street, shout out to all those people. But this is the deal. I remember being there and people were like, do not talk about the king, man. Like, you cannot say anything. When I lived in Qatar, it was the exact same way. Don't say a word about the shady Al Thani family that runs that country or the network of the tribals and exactly how they do business with one another. And billions of dollars just seem to go missing. I would dispute that the king is skimming it off the top and he's probably just being straight up paid by the Saudis. They're like, oh yeah, you take this.
Take this and do this for us.
Everybody else gets this. It's all good. That's business. And yeah, I mean, the king apparently has got a $10 million luxury riverside condo here in DC. I don't even know where a $10 million condo would be. I'm literally trying to think. There's not that much, luxury real estate like that around here. So probably the Watergate is what I'm thinking right now. Pretty amazing though, in order to see how the king has all this hundreds of millions of dollars. There's no way that people in Jordan will ever even hear about a lot of this, but it's gonna seep into their political system because, they've had problems for a long time of people calling out the royal family saying, hey, everybody here, we've got all these refugees, Palestinians, we've got these Syrians and more, and look at the king, he's living large. He's got these ranches, which are legend, in Jordan, and now they learn about these homes and pictures of that and stuff with the internet. It's going to seep into the political conscious there.
Absolutely. And to kind of tie a bow on this, and we're definitely going to continue to follow the journalism around this because honestly, of everything we're covering this morning, this is one of the most significant stories, just exposing the way that this tiny group of global elites, the way that they operate, the way a different set of rules applies to them, the way they lie, the way they hide, the way they obfuscate. The Guardian had a great quote here from Gerald Ryle, who's the director of the independent consortium of journalists. They're the ones who got this leak to start with. And he said, leading politicians who organized their finances in tax havens had a stake in the status quo and were likely to be an obstacle to reform of the offshore economy. Here's the quote. When you have world leaders, when you have politicians, when you have public officials, all using the secrecy and all using this world, then I don't think we're going to see an end of it. So the Panama Papers, that exposure, that revelation, that didn't change anything. They just changed law firms, they changed tactics, and that's what we'll see again, right? In order to make sure that they are able to keep their secrets truly secret. If they need to, they'll change tactics, they'll change firms, they'll change from, the Bahamas to South Dakota or whatever need be. But since you have the people who run the world, and I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but we're literally talking about country leaders here, state leaders here, when they benefit from this system, you've got to be a fool if you think that they're going to be interested in changing it. That's just the facts.
That's right.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.